Welcome to episode 78 of the GRQ podcast. On this episode, we answer the GRQ OTW 77. We cover a couple of Clubland stories, including whether bark chips around a tree are an immovable obstruction. We delve deep into the end score in a match. And finally, Stuart and Blakey both have been busy on tour and share a couple of their rules stories. We hope you enjoy this episode. Golf is a test of character before it is a test of skill, and playing by the rules of golf will definitely test your character.
Hey everyone, welcome to the GRQ podcast 78. You're here with Blakey. I am in Saudi Arabia. We've just finished the Saudi International, and Stu has also joined me, and he's just finished at Ranfurly. What were you doing at Ranfurly, Stuart?
Thanks, Blakey, and hello to you. This morning I was there for the Victorian Open qualifying round on the Monday before the Vic Open this weekend, and I also did just finish 4 days at Clubland Golf Club up on the Victoria-New South Wales border, as well, with a very nice, very good finish on Sunday afternoon.
What was this qualifying score for? I saw Sarah Jane Smith won the Clubland at the TPS, which is a fantastic effort. That's 2 women winning in a row on the PGA Tour of Australasia, which is great. Abraham Answer won the Saudi International wire to wire, wire to wire. Led after the first round, didn't give it up. What was the winning score at the Monday qualifying to get into the Vic Open?
So interestingly enough, I had I was just sitting out there on the course waiting for a ruling to be called, and I had a father walk past, and he said to me, "Oh, do you know what the best scores are and all this sort of stuff?" I said, "Actually, I haven't been tracking the scores. As you are out on the course, sometimes you're not abreast of who's playing well and who's not playing well. You see players walk past, unless it's Sunday afternoon. There's chatter amongst on the radio amongst the referees. You're sort of keeping tabs on, X leads by 1, or they've just bogeyed that hole, that sort of stuff. Anyway, so I rang up and found out that -9 was leading this morning. Next best was 6 under. And then I think what was going to make qualification was maybe 4 or 5 under to actually get in to this week's event.
Did they have a playoff?
I had to leave, unfortunately, for another engagement. I believe there would have been a playoff happening. And then the women were playing this afternoon.
Ah, right. They were putting the women on this afternoon. Do you know how many women were playing?
I did see the sheet. I'm going to go there and say maybe 40.
Yeah, okay.
Something like that.
Probably for 25 spots.
No comment. There were certainly a lot more men. 2T start. About maybe 12 matches each side. Groups of 3, 36, 72, something like that.
For 5 spots.
Yep, correct.
Right. Let's get into, very good. So we've both been refereeing, and we will talk through some of our refereeing highlights from the week. First of all, we better get into the GRQ OTW 77 answer. So the question was, in stroke play, Claire's tee shot comes to rest within the margins of a red penalty area, but not in the water. Claire makes a stroke at the ball and it dribbles down the bank into the water and cannot be played. Claire drops another ball on the bank within the penalty area in the proper relief area for the rule, 17.1D1. They decide not to play again from that lie and drop a third ball within 2 club lengths and not nearer the hole than the spot where the ball originally crossed the edge of the red penalty area. Claire plays from there. For this series of events, how many penalty strokes has the player gotten? What's your thoughts, Stuart?
Well, 2 thoughts that come to mind is she's proceeded to take relief twice. That's the initial thought. She's proceeded under stroke and distance, so 17.1D1, to go on back to where her previous stroke was made, which may have only been 1 or 2 metres back, but you're entitled to do that within the penalty area. So that's the initial thought, is she's dropped there once, then decided not to play that ball, and then decided to take relief outside. Therefore, you would then think, well, that's a second drop. But if you actually go to 17.1D1, all of these are under the penalty of 1 stroke, the 3 options. And the first one, of course, is stroke and distance. The player may play the original ball or another ball from where the previous stroke was made. And so the question would then raise, by dropping that ball with the intent for it to be in play, under that rule, has she incurred the 1 stroke penalty yet? Because she hasn't yet played the original ball or another ball from where the previous stroke was made. Whereas the other 2 options are the player may drop the original ball or another ball outside the penalty area, et cetera, back on the line or lateral. And that's, as soon as you drop that, you've incurred the 1 stroke penalty. So I was in a bit of 2 minds about whether it's 1 stroke penalty or 2 1 stroke penalties. I think the obvious answer is 2, but I'm not convinced.
Well, it is 2. And if we just head over to rule 17.2, if you look at A, it goes, when ball played from penalty area comes to rest in same or another penalty area, then you have all those rule options, relief options under 17.1, as well as playing from your last place played within the penalty area. So you've got 2 stroke and distance options effectively. One is inside the penalty area and one is outside. Now you can opt to go straight to the one outside, or you can go straight to 2 club lengths, or you can go back on the line outside the penalty area. Or you can choose to drop at that last place played inside the penalty area. But if you do so, you do that for a penalty of 1. Even if you don't play it, you still get the penalty of 1 for dropping it.
Yep.
Then you still have those options of going outside the penalty area for another penalty stroke. So you're correct. It is 2 times 1 penalty strokes, a total of 2 penalty strokes.
And I think one of the things that I learned very early on, and 17.2 covers this, is if your ball is in a red penalty area or yellow, you can have another 10 strokes. You can take some penalty drops. You can take some free drops, another 3 strokes. You never, ever lose that estimated point where the ball last crossed into that penalty area. So you always retain that ability to get out using one of those options. Yeah.
If only the unplayable still had that rule, like, can you remember Kevin Na when he had a 16?
Yeah, I remember you mentioned, in the jungle.
If he always had the option of going back to the teeing area, that could have saved him a lot of pain.
You would have done it 8 strokes earlier.
Yeah. Actually, that's a good idea. Actually, I'm gonna encourage them to adopt that. Even if you have 7 or so shots in the forest, you can always go back and play.
Start the hole again almost, but just don't forfeit any of those strokes. You've got to keep those strokes.
Exactly. Start the hole again. Those strokes still count. The penalty strokes still count, but you get to start the hole again. I like that idea.
Now, Blake, if you get that through, whilst the latest change to putting a ball back into play and then it rolling into another area of the course and being able to replace it is known commonly as the Ricky Fowler rule. If you get that through, we may call that the Kevin Na rule.
Yes. Yeah. That's right. That would be exactly what it would be called.
The Blakey / Kevin Na rule.
Definitely do not want my name attached to that. So great. That was question 77, GRQ OTW. Now, we've had a couple of Clubland story, what's the word? Applications? No.
Submissions?
Clubland, perfect. A couple of Clubland story submissions, and we're going to roll these out today. As Stuart and I have said over the previous podcasts, you can submit a Clubland story to the Google form, and we will address it on the podcast. So here we have one from And Fergo. I don't really want to read out their Gmail or their email account.
No.
But thank you, Anne Fergo. So a small gum tree, about 3 meters in height and 4-inch diameter trunk, so pretty small, on the first hole is on the edge of the fairway, located on the edge of the fairway. It has a ring of bark chips around it. It's the only tree on the hole with this ring of bark. It's not staked. It's not under 2 club lengths in height. Should the player get relief if they're in the bark chips? Now, the club president says it's a garden bed and free relief is possible, but this person is not in agreement and thinks it is a play as it lies situation. What sticks out at you with that kind of question or comment, Stuart?
Immediately, I'm thinking to loose impediments and the fact that all that bark is still attached to the tree, attached natural object. Therefore, they are not loose impediments. And what jumps out is we could explore the garden bed a little bit further, but initially I would think that's a play as it lies or take unplayable.
So the options. I believe the bark chips are not from the tree. I believe the bark chips are, a cut up tree, and then they've been placed around the tree.
I see what you're saying.
As a bit of a beautification.
Decoration almost.
Yes, correct.
Understood. Well, now you could start making the argument that it's an obstruction. It's artificial.
Yeah.
The fact that it's been man-made, it's been using natural objects. If you constructed this thing for appearance sake, for the tree to look a bit nicer, you could make an argument that all of a sudden it's an obstruction. It's an artificial object.
Yeah, that's very true. It's something natural.
Certainly not natural, is it? It's clearly man. It's interfered.
Natural turned into an obstruction, isn't it?
I think you can make an argument. It's not naturally there.
The player could play as it lies, or they could remove the individual bark chips as loose impediments, or they could take free relief from.
It's sitting on a movable obstruction.
Yeah,
and it's not beside an obstruction; it's sitting on top of it.
I tend to agree with that. I don't like it. I agree that it should be a play as it lies. I think that what it really comes down to is the committee really needs to say, okay, this is an integral object,
exactly,
or this is a garden bed type area, and we are wanting you to take, or giving you free relief. Now, when you make local rules, there's 2 reasons that you'd make a local rule. One is you're trying to protect the course. That's probably the most important. I don't think, there's a small gum tree, but I don't think you're really trying to protect this tree. It's not small enough. So I wouldn't have free relief to protect the tree. And the second reason is to protect the player. And personally, I wouldn't, if it says on the edge of the fairway, it really depends on how close it is to the fairway. If it is really close, then possibly you're trying to protect the player there. But I prefer the play as it lies, or play the course as you find it type situation. And I would actually tend to make that an integral object, that ring of bark around the tree, an integral object.
At the same time, the owners of the club, the members, the president, the committee and the like, probably don't want people coming up with their 7-iron and hacking away at the ball lodged in this thing that they've made to wrap around the tree. They probably don't want people swiping at it with their clubs to damage it.
Possibly. Why did they even put it there in the first place?
Oh, exactly. But if it is for that beautification of, this looks really nice, I don't know. A picture would be great, a photo would be great, but again, they probably don't want people swiping at it with their clubs, because you have other guys.
Yeah.
You got a plays that lies or taking unplayable. Oh, I'm not taking unplayable. Whack! Let's get this thing out of there, and they damage it. And they probably don't want that.
Yeah, possibly. The interesting thing is possibly it was not growing grass around the area and it didn't look very nice, so they did put the bark chips for that beautification.
And the easy thing to do is just whack something around it which looks natural and call it an NPZ on their local rules. It would be the easy thing to do and just keep players away from it.
Yeah, or just stick a stake right beside it.
Yeah.
You really wouldn't want to put like any kind of stone or something, so if it's so close to the fairway.
But something you don't want a white line around it all the time either.
No,
as I said,
exactly.
something natural which clearly identifies the area of that no play zone.
A small stake with a really small, with just a little NPZ or GUR, and then they can choose to take relief or not.
Yeah.
But it definitely needs to be, this kind of thing definitely needs to be described in the local rules.
Addressed, correct. Yes,
because
as you're saying, local rules are designed, protect the course, protect the player, but it's things that are specific to that course that you're not going to find at a lot of other courses. That's why they appear in the local rules. On the third hole, there's a penalty area down there. If you think blah, 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 you're allowed to hit a provisional, for example. There might be a local rule which says that because it's specific to that hole on that course that you're not going to find on other courses. That might be a bad example, but that's why you have local rules.
It's a bad example because we don't want to promote that local rule.
No. That's why I corrected myself. But you know what I'm saying? Specific to that course. Yeah. And this could be an example of something specific to that course.
Well, that's right. I mean, at another course, they could have called it an integral object. At a different course, they could have called it a no play zone, and another course could have called it GUR. The local rules are really there for players' information, providing information to the player about the course.
And you don't want a player's ball ending up in that position or right up against the tree or inside the bark and everyone looking at each other going, what do we do?
Yeah, exactly right.
We want them to know what to do, keep playing, move on.
And it could be a situation where you do provide free relief, but not for stance. So they can stand on the bark and play it. But yeah, that's definitely one that they need to address in the local rules. We'll send that out to Anne Fergo. Thank you very much for your situation. And if you have any others, feel free to submit another one. And to anyone else, feel free to submit one. We have another one from JKnox. A question raised at our club: a ball is hit and slam dunks in the hole. When going to take the ball out of the hole, it's found embedded into the wall of the hole. No part of the ball is in the hole. Is it still deemed as being holed? What do you think about that one? Can you first of all, can you imagine it?
Well, I'm trying to picture it. So it's embedded in the grass beside the hole on the green, and it's wedged in there, but it's not below the surface of the hole, the ground, nor is it resting up against the flagstick, I'm assuming.
Yeah, correct.
In which case, I suspect that person needs to have another stroke to tap it in.
Yeah, this is
the complete play of the hole.
I've definitely seen a ball where it's embedded in the side of the hole. And if it's embedded in the side of the hole with part of the ball breaking that circumference of the hole, then, so we've got a part of the ball breaking inside. If you look straight down into the hole, you see a part of the ball breaking the circumference. Then the only question you have to ask is the whole ball below the level of the putting green?
Exactly.
Now, if the cup, the plastic insert or metallic insert, has only been cut an inch down from the top, it is very unlikely that the whole ball will be below the putting green, because I think, can you remember how the diameter of a ball, I think it's 1.68 or something like that, right? 1.68 inches. So if it's 1.68 inches, I'll check it out later. Then, and the top of the cup is only 1 inch below,
Insert.
then physics tells me that can't, or maths tells me that can't work.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But if the cup is cut, the plastic insert's cut even further down, or there is no plastic insert, because you don't need a plastic insert for a hole, then if all of the ball is below the level of the putting green, the ball is holed. If it's
And
not,
has broken that edge of the hole. Yes.
We're looking down, we see that
Looking
it's
down, you
broken.
can see it. Exactly.
That's
Yeah.
broken the circumference. So that's, if it hasn't broken circumference, don't worry about it. We don't even have to ask the second question. But if it's broken the circumference where you can see it when you look straight down, then the second question is all of it below the putting green? If it is, hold. If it's not, then mark your ball. Try and repair the pitch mark if you can.
Repair the damage. Yeah.
Replace your ball. If your ball won't stay at rest, you place it again. If it doesn't stay at rest, you move it slightly so it's no nearer the hole. I don't know if you could get nearer the hole. And make sure it comes to rest. And then, as you said, it's going to cost an extra stroke.
Yeah.
Done.
So just to clarify, so when the ball is holed, when it's not completely below the surface of the green, it needs to be resting up against the flagstick.
Yes, and not. This is an interesting one. Not with the flagstick at rest against the ball, but the ball at rest against the flagstick.
Right. Yeah.
So if the ball was embedded, then it's not at rest against the flagstick. But if the flagstick's on a slope, then the flagstick is at rest against the ball, which wouldn't count.
No. Very good.
That was two Clubland stories from our Google Forms, which is great. So anyone else who has one, please feel free to submit, and we will address it here on the podcast. I believe you have a couple of Clubland stories, Stuart.
This one is this is not really a rule situation. It's more of a discussion on the role of people in a competition. So this is a real conversation I had with a group I was playing with a week or maybe last Wednesday. And we're talking about going on golf trips and talking about one particular person who's a regular on trips that I go on, who is a cheat, a known cheat, has been caught countless times, throwing a ball out from behind the tree, kicking it out, all sorts of stuff, has openly admitted, and yes, I know I cheat, I can't help myself, etc., etc. That's not really the issue. That's just really leading us to the bigger issue, I think, although that is a pretty big issue. But I was talking to these people, and I've heard he cheats, and two people go straight away, I have seen him. I have physically seen him. He definitely does. One situation, I could see his ball just in the thick grass off the edge of the fairway. I turn around to walk away, immediately turn back. He probably thinks I'm not watching, and I saw him just pick it up and throw it out. So I know each other. I've seen him. And then he went on to say, this is the killer. He then went on to say something along the lines of, but at the time, I didn't want to say anything because I wasn't his marker.
Right.
And I thought, wow, I just think that is a really, really big misunderstanding of the role of a marker, or the role of other people in a stroke play event.
That's right, the role of other people.
So I just found that fascinating. He was dead set serious. Look, I didn't want to say anything because I wasn't his marker, so it's not my place. I found that fascinating.
What do you think he should have done?
Said something,
either
to the player.
To the player or
the
to
player.
The marker?
Well, okay, so let's have a think about this. You could certainly say immediately to the player, can I just ask what you were doing there? I think is probably the softest way of doing it, as opposed to run straight over and start poking in the chest. But can I ask what you were doing? Wasn't your ball over there, et cetera, et cetera? I think the marker is probably one of the last people I'd speak to. I think the next people I would speak to would be the committee.
I would
probably say something to the marker. By the way, did you see what happened there? Just letting you know, I'll be pursuing this with the committee. For example, if he
definitely say
doesn't
something.
change his score.
I'd definitely say something to the market.
But the market wouldn't be the first person I would speak to. More than likely.
I would probably yell out and just say, "Hey, what are you doing?"
Exactly. Yeah. Can I ask what you're doing?
And then see where that went. And it would baffle me if he tried to deny it or she tried to deny it. And then go, and then if he did or they did try and deny it, I guess we go, did anyone else see that happen? And then I'd almost, if they did try and deny it, I'd almost walk off.
I just found it. I thought you'd find it. I mean, you've told me what you believe the role of a marker is, and I thought it was a very good description. But I just found that fascinating. Again, I'll repeat myself, that he said, well, it wasn't my problem because I wasn't his marker. Had I been his marker, I may have said something, but I was just another player in the event. So I wasn't going to say anything. I wasn't his marker.
I wish he'd lost by a shot to that bloke. And then we see whether he would have said anything.
Exactly. Yeah, it's like it wasn't his problem because he wasn't his marker.
Yeah.
And I thought that was, I think it's almost wrong. It's a wrong approach.
It is a wrong approach. He's playing against them. He's in the field.
But I wonder how many other people in Clubland think, well, I'm really not concerned about what that player's doing because I'm not his marker. So he's not my problem.
No,
But if I'm his marker, I'm going to pay very close attention, possibly. Not that close, but, I'm following how many shots he's had. But if he's not mine, I'm not going to worry about it.
I would think that the person, this is off the cuff, I would think that the person who has the most rules knowledge in the group would keep a close eye on everyone.
Well, and you and I have spoken about this previously, and I know of several other players, people go on golf trips and the like, who count everybody else's strokes, every hole. Now, they may, or they probably don't mark them down, but when someone goes off and says to his marker, I had a 4, they'll know straight away, he didn't have a 4, he had a 5.
Yeah,
because they just count everyone else's strokes. They know exactly how many strokes other people have had. I think you do that too.
I do it, yes.
No, I do it too.
It just keeps my mind at ease. But I wish I could transfer that into counting cards.
Yeah. Look, I had a round maybe only 3 or 4 weeks ago, just one hole. The guy walked off, says, 6 for 1. I said, are you sure you didn't have a 7? Now I know this guy well. I play with him. Are you sure he didn't have a 7? He goes, yeah, 7. I wiped it. Simple as that. Why? Because I was counting his shots. I knew exactly how many he had. Doesn't happen very often, but it only happened a few weeks ago.
I say it to my girlfriend all the time when we play golf. She's like, did I have a double? And I was like, no, that was more like a triple or a quad. She's like,
you didn't have a 12 on that hole, did you?
Yeah, she's like, you're not going to count the one that I missed it. And I was like, well, did you try to hit it? She's like, yes. I was like,
oh, she loved playing golf with you.
She does. She does love playing golf with me. Doesn't matter. Yeah. She doesn't listen to the podcast.
I'm sure that's exactly what she told you.
That's why we haven't played in 5 months. No. Yeah, right. So we've sorted out the role of a marker. Now you had another Clubland.
Well, I do, and just to finish on that point, just to state what you told me years ago, you believe the role of the marker, not that this person thought it was his problem because he wasn't the marker, but you always told me the role of the marker was to be the eyes and ears of the committee. It was to provide information to the committee should the committee need to investigate something and try to ascertain the facts. You're just there as a representative almost. You shouldn't be called on too often, but that's what your role is really.
That's a good way of putting it. And overall, the committee is there for the whole field of players. So in effect, you are one representative of the whole field of the player. I mean, as a referee, we're both referees. That's who we're acting for. We're not acting for us, the referee. We're acting for, the rest of the players. And they would think if you're, do the rules, address the rules properly, and play by the rule. We don't play, but if you rule it correctly, that they would hope that you do that for everyone else.
Exactly.
Again, and you had another Clubland story, Stuart.
This also involves Rule 3, and this was as simple as this. I played in a 4-ball match board event on Sunday. We were 2 down on the 17th green. 2 down on the 17th green. My opponent and I had 10-foot putts side by side with my opponent to putt first. She made the putt. Match is over, right? To prevent us from having any further chance to win. We shook hands, and then I actually putted as well, made my putt as well, which is probably not relevant as we'd already lost the match. He said, did we lose 2 down, 2 and 1 down? It's no big deal. I just want to know, how do they accurately reflect the result of that match? To which I replied to him, but I thought that was interesting about how we record the results of matches.
That's in the rule book. I'll read this out and hope that I've chosen the right one. In a match between A and B, A is 1 up playing the last hole. In the following situations, and considering B's actions, does A win by 1 hole or 2 holes? Similar to your situation?
Mm-hmm.
So first one, B is on the green in 3 strokes, but a long way from the hole. A plays his 3rd stroke from the edge of the green, and it comes to rest about a foot from the hole. B goes over and shakes hands with A. So remember that A is 1 up playing the last.
Yep.
So B went over to A and shook his hand in the first scenario. Second scenario, B is on the green in 2 strokes. A holds his 3rd stroke and B shakes hands with A. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Third scenario, A plays his 2nd shot from the fairway onto the green. B's 2nd shot misses the green and plugs in a bunker. B immediately walks over to A and shakes his hand. Fourth scenario, B is on the green in 6 strokes, but a long way from the hole. A plays his 3rd stroke from the edge of the green, and it comes to rest about 1 foot from the hole. B goes over and shakes hands with A. And then the 5th scenario, A is on the green in 2 strokes. B plays his 3rd stroke from the fairway onto the green, and the ball comes to rest about 1 foot from the hole. B goes over and shakes hands with A. The handshake between the players is deemed to represent an agreement to concede each player's next stroke. So that's basically the rule. Accordingly, in situations, scenario 1 to 3, A wins the match by 1 hole because they shook hands and B still had an opportunity to have a half. In situations 4 and 5, A has won the final hole and wins the match by 2 holes. So you guys shook hands. So I was incorrect. It doesn't actually matter if you. Well, I think I think I wasn't incorrect. If you pick your ball up, that's not a concession by your opponents for your shot. So they would win 3 and 1. But if they came and shook your hand, or you went and shook their hand, then they've conceded your next stroke and you lose 2 up. Or 2 down. So.
I'd be very interested to see if the current rule book has something similar to that.
Rule 2 or decision 232. 232 outcome change, no, but it has been eliminated. It is now covered by 3.2b2. 3.2b2. A concession is made only when clearly communicated. This can be done either verbally or by an action that clearly shows the player's intent to concede the stroke, the hole, or the match, such as making a gesture. if the opponent lifts their ball in breach of a rule because of a reasonable misunderstanding that the player's statement or action was concession, blah, blah, blah. So basically, what is a concession? A concession is opponent's next stroke, a hole, or the match. And they didn't say we concede the hole. They just shook your hand, which means it means you concede the next stroke.
So I think at the highest level, how many competitions that involve match play concern themselves with the margins in the end? Immediately I go to the Ryder Cup, for example. Now they'll put on television Thomas and, Spieth won 7 and 6, but it doesn't matter. They still only got 1 point.
That doesn't actually matter, because we remember from Jack Nicklaus conceding that putt to I can't remember that, but
Darren. No, I'm thinking. I know the one you're talking about.
No, it was
years ago.
Yeah, he conceded that putt, and that meant that they tied. The US
retained.
The US retained, so they didn't look back at match scores or anything like that. So Ryder Cup, Solheim, Presidents, they obviously don't. A local pennant that we are involved with, well, not me anymore, but you, local pennant, they definitely keep an eye on the match scores, but it very rarely. Oh, actually, was it last year or the year before when it actually it made a difference? It did. There was one division that it made a difference, and they had to go back to who out of the number ones who had the best record. And then I think they had the same, and then it went to who won out of the two of them. So I guess that didn't really come down to actual match results, but I think they might have been, yeah. So it didn't actually come down to the 7 and 8 or 7 and 6 or 5 and 4, but it definitely came down to how many matches the number ones had won.
Exactly. Yeah, but not by the margins.
Not by the margins. So maybe that is redundant now.
Mm. So my thinking is it is, and I think back to your comments not so long ago in a previous podcast about the rules of golf, USGA, R&A. They don't concern themselves with what a birdie is. They don't care what a bogey is. And I tend to think about, these events that concern themselves with, was it 2 up, was it 2 and 1, 3 and 1? R&A, USGA don't care. They're just telling you how you win a match or how you lose a match. That's what they're concerned about.
Yeah. I mean, if it's in the book, I still think that they do concern themselves with it. Whether they,
it's almost of insignificance. To them, it's very black and white. How do you win a match? Your opponent's disqualified, opponent concedes, or you're 1 more holes than our holes left. They're the 3 ways you win a match. Maybe they don't really care about, was it 2 and 1 or 3 and 1 or 2 up? I don't know.
Well, I think, do they care? I think, because at the end of the day, all these rules, they run their own championships as well. So they need to, be black and white on how they're running them.
Of course.
And, they run that, the Junior Ryder Cup or whatever it is, or the Junior, the GB&I versus the US or whatever it is, or GBI versus Europe and stuff like that. I still think that they care. But every dot and every T crossed and everything. They created the set of rules, and then other people said, "Oh, well, can we just use yours?" And they said, "Yep, sweet." And then it got adopted worldwide. So I believe they do. They do also play by them. But the significance of the actual result of the match, as we've talked about, is probably pretty small. I mean, that's not to say that, Gardner's Run tomorrow creates a match play event and says, the winner of, this head-to-head match play, and it's an individual match play winner, is not the person who wins the final match, because there won't be one. It's just whoever has the biggest difference.
Exactly. In which case they would set about the ways in which they would determine and calculate all that and be very clear about that.
Spot on. And then because the rules are written the way they are, that allows them to say, we play by the R&A rules.
Mm.
Right, I think we've crossed that one off. Now, you had a couple of Cobram Baruga, which you've been refereeing for 4
so
days.
I'm just thinking about time and whether we leave it for another podcast. I have quite a few stories from there, and I'm sure you have some from Jeddah or in Saudi Arabia.
No, we can crack on. I've still got another 30 or 40 minutes.
Okay, I certainly have. Let's go to. Let me just go back to my notes that I was actually knowing we would do this, the next podcast at some point. I'm sitting out there on the course and I thought, I better not forget that one. I'll write that one down so we can bring it up. I'll give you 9
the whole time.
Say again, you had 9.
I only had 9. It's crazy.
Oh,
it's very quiet.
Here's a good one. Okay, so first hole, par 5. A young lady, I think she was from Thailand, just flew the green, went over. Well, I didn't see how the ball got there, but it eventually came to rest behind the green up against a boundary fence. And sure enough, I was called to it. Now, this boundary fence was a cyclone fence, but it wasn't steel, it was like plasticky. So it was actually quite movable. You could, easily push your weight up against it and move it around quite easily. And of course, she's asked for my help. And I said, how can I help? And with very, very softly spoken, she was just explaining, can I get relief from this? And I said, no. I said, that as that's a boundary object, there's no free relief available from the fence. I said, the only options you have are to play the ball as it lies or take an unplayable ball relief. And there are 3 options for that. And I said, you can't go back on the line because back on the line is back out through the fence. So that's out. Your only options are go lateral, which would provide her a very, very small sliver of relief area up against the fence, or to, of course, proceed under stroke and distance and go back. There's 2 points that I wanted to raise. One, the time she took to make a decision with her caddy, whom I assume was her father. The time they took was excessive, and I probably learned something from that I stepped away. After I provided her those options, I just stepped away only a few meters to talk to the other 2 players who were listening in, which brings me to my second point in just a moment. But I probably should have just stayed that 1 or 2 meters closer to apply that smallest bit of pressure to go, come on, you need to make a decision, because she took way too long. In the end, she proceeded on a stroke and distance. In the end, she jumped in my buggy and my cart, and I drove her back to where she best estimate where she hit her last shot from, dropped, played, I drove her back. Meanwhile, the other 2 have actually holed out, right? Because the rest are waiting on the fairway, waiting to hit up. And the rest of the other 2 have holed out, standing on the next tee, which actually was not that far away. One of them yelled out to me and said, am I right to hit? I said, yeah, just go. If you're ready, just go. And we can watch her hole out. The stroke and distance shot, she actually put in the bunker on and then 2 putted. So one was the excessive time, but more importantly, I thought was, whilst this time was going on, the other 2 players were listening in. And they were talking to me about, could she do this? Can she stand out of bounds to hit that ball and hit it back? Can she do this? Can she do this? And they weren't talking amongst themselves. They were quite loud. And I said to them afterwards, after I drove her back down to the fairway, 170 metres, and came back up to the green and talked to those other 2 players, I just said to them, just a friendly warning, you need to be very careful about what you say. And I was very friendly about it, and they were very receptive. I said, you need to be very careful about what you say, that it's not perceived to be attempting to influence the player in what they do. Because they were talking about, she could go outside the fence, and make a stroke from outside the fence, hitting the ball and et cetera, et cetera. And I just said that. I've never had that situation before. It was a first for me. I think you could tell they were quite appreciative of what I said. I said it with a smile. and it was a friendly warning. I said, just got to be careful about what you say, that someone doesn't perceive that as attempting to influence the player. I almost saw it, and I hate to be sexist about it, but this was a really young, small, young girl, and it was almost like these guys were trying to step in and help her out, and be
Big
chivalrous
brother
about it and try to, yeah, exactly, and try to help her out of this, what was really a difficult situation. And it really was. She was right up against the fence, had no shot. Only option was to go back and play it again. It was almost they were trying to be, a big brother trying to look out for her. And I just said, just be careful about what you say. You need to probably keep it to yourself a bit, because they were quite vocal about it.
Well, that's it. It's not what they said. It's at the volume that they said it. It sounds like
They were no more than 5 meters away from the fence,
Yeah.
and her caddy.
they're welcome to have a conversation amongst themselves, but any kind of influence could be construed as advice.
Yeah, which is why I provided a warning. I didn't think it came anywhere near close to warranting a right, guys, it's 2 strokes each or anything like that. It was just a conversation I had with them and I think genuinely they appreciated the fact that I said it with a smile and said, just be careful next time.
Yeah.
Yeah, as I said, it was a new situation for me. I've never had that.
I don't think I've ever had that one.
Mhm.
Yeah, nice. Another one from Cobb and Brew.
Yeah, I got a juicy one. The next hole. So I forget this is
Same
day
group?
one or no, completely different. Day 1, day 2, second hole. So blind shot. You're playing actually over the ladies' tee, which is in front of you, and then down to a flat. You cannot see where your ball ends up. So this is when I rock up. I get the phone call, get the call over the radio. I rock up. Player is coming out of the trees, a little bit distressed. I said, how can I help? He explained as follows. I hit my tee shot way left, and I knew it might be in trouble. So I played a provisional ball, which ended on the fairway. I said, okay, good. He said, as I came over the hill, I could see the spotters. So these are the volunteers assisting the event. I could see the spotters waving at me and sort of pointing to the ground. Hey, we found your ball. It's right here. It landed here. We saw it. It's okay. We've got it. At that point, I've walked past my provisional ball and I picked it up. I've moved over to the area where the spotters are waving me down, only to discover that the ball they had found and were pointing at was not my ball I'd hit from the tee. We searched for another 3 minutes and I couldn't find it. And he said to me, what do I do? So again, this was a new one for me as well. I knew the rule, but I've never had this happen for real. I've probably read this question many times, but never seen it happen to a player, real player, trying to make the cut, trying to make a living, and it happened to him. And he was a little bit upset when I told him the rule. So you know the rule as well as I do, better than I do.
It's a real shame with those spotters, and they're like, oh, we've got a ball, and it's like, well, yeah, that's really annoying. Was that on the 5th hole?
Second hole. Second.
Of the old course?
What did we play? I think it was the old course. Whichever one has the first 5 holes on one side of the road and the rest on the other side. It wasn't the West course, it was the old course. Yeah.
They might have rerouted the course then.
Okay. First is a par 5 down the fence to where this fence was, where the Thai girl the day before was up. Second is back. One. Par 3 is where the BMW went off. BMW went off yesterday. Took video of the player retrieving the ball, $136,000 car. That was all very exciting.
The par 3 is the 3rd hole, you say?
Correct. It was 177 meters.
So the first hole used to be the one that you hit away from the pro shop, a little par 4.
Okay.
And then the second hole was down below it, and you came back and you're heading towards the road.
Okay. So I'll just talk about this conversation I had with the player just for a moment. I said to him, we need to go back to where your provisional ball was. But then, of course, I had to tell him, and we need to add 1 penalty stroke because you've lifted your ball in play. Well, to say that he was a bit filthy and a bit upset is an understatement. Yeah. So
that's gutting.
So I said, look, let's go back. We'll find where you actually picked up your provisional. We'll just place that ball, replace it. If you don't know for sure, just best estimate. By this stage, it was filthy. And then to add salt to the wound, as we were driving back, I was driving back, he was walking back to the location of his provisional. We could hear the spotters behind us back in the tree, all very excited that they had in fact found his original ball after all. But of course, it was after the 3 minutes had elapsed. So this player did not want to know anything about that.
He's going to have such a good taste in his mouth when he goes back there next year.
Especially on that hole. So as he walked off the green, I said, look, by my calculations, you've had a 7, because he was hitting his 5th shot from where his provisional ball was before he picked it up. I think I've counted that correctly. 3, 4, yeah, and then playing 5 from there after the 1-stroke penalty for lifting his ball in play. Yeah, and made 2 shots, 7. I said, I believe he had a 7. He was a bit upset. He wanted to talk about, about the spotters and what role they play. And I said, to appease him, I said, look, what I'll do is I'll talk to the tournament director now about it and see if we can just, not make a deal, but just talk to him about that. I did that knowing there'd be no way out of the 1-stroke penalty, but I did it to make him feel a bit more at ease before he played another 16 holes.
Yeah, that's right. Nice work. Yeah, I'm just looking at the map of Cobram now. So that's the first, second, and then the third's the par 3, and then 4, 5, and then you come back over the road.
Correct. So far, so good. As soon as you come across the road, turn left, that's a 6th hole.
And then it's 6th. And then
you're now at the top of the hill where the old clubhouse
is. The green that's near the 6th tee, is that the 9th?
18.
Oh.
9's 500. 9's out on the course.
Did they change the clubhouse? Is the clubhouse near the 18th?
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
18th hole is the one right next to there. Yeah. So, and we had to have a shuttle to take players to the 10th tee for the first 2 days.
So the old hotel car park, that's at the back of the 6th green.
Correct. Not in use anymore as a clubhouse.
Ah, that used to be where, so the 18th was the one behind that, and the first.
Right. So that was used as. Sorry. Oh, okay. Down the hill, par 4. Yep. Okay.
Your little short par 4 drivable.
Not quite drivable. No, not really. But anyway, not long.
Maybe they extended it. Maybe just
that old clubhouse was used for all the volunteers. Media were in there, and some accommodation.
Oh, I didn't realise that they'd changed it. They must have done that a few years ago. Haven't been up there for a while.
Okay.
Yeah. So that used to be the old. Okay. So that's because the guys that own it, were the sporting club. So they must have gone, well, we own that bit over there. We've just bought that bit there. Maybe they'll put more accommodation in or something. Oh, very good. Now, did you have any others at Clubland?
I do, but I think it's your turn.
No, I need to get yours all out because I can do a big run of mine at the end if I can remember them. So keep going with as many as you've got.
Okay. Talking about spotters, I had on the 10th hole yesterday, so this is the day 4, I had 2 spotters who didn't even play golf and really didn't know what to do.
But tough.
And this is a par 5 and a blind tee shot, and I could just see this woman watching them hit and then just looking in the complete wrong area to watch the ball go overhead. And it was a bit comical. Her husband's on the other side of the fairway, sitting in a chair, just enjoying the afternoon. But it just made me think about, we've got to cut them some slack in that they are, and poor player on the 2nd hole who ran afoul of one when they thought he'd found his ball and it wasn't his ball at all. All these people are volunteers, and most of them are club members or locals in the area wanting to help out. And I heard one on the 13th hole, it was yesterday, day 4, talking to one of her friends, this older woman talking to one of her friends, talking about her role on the hole, and she was doing this and what have you. And she said, "See those red stakes over there?" And there was red stakes on the red penalty area left of 13. She said to her friend, "Oh, that's out of bounds. They don't want to hit it over there." I just thought that was funny. The spotters, some of them know golf better than I do and play golf better than I do, and they're there doing a wonderful job. But some of them are not so golf savvy, and describing that area on the left of 13, which was a red penalty area, of course, as out of bounds, I thought was a little funny.
Yeah, I mean, you get your volunteers where you get your volunteers. I hope they enjoyed it. Maybe they start golf after that, but I guess there needs to be a better training for volunteers. That's not something
Agreed.
that the PGA probably has time to do, but they should.
Agreed. So on this 10th hole, there's a woman who didn't know even where to look, and I could see her staring into the distance across the fairway, and the ball's sailing over here, and now thud, 70 meters to her left, and she's still looking for the ball in front of her, which was just hilarious. But just the simple things of, hey, when they hit the ball and they pick up their tee straight away, for example, they're pretty happy with the shot. When they hit their ball, if they extend their arm out all the way to the left with their club, they're indicating something. Simple little things like this. If they lean a little bit one way or the other, that's an indication of where perhaps roughly to look. Simple things like that. Now, most golfers know all that, but it just so happened these two on this particular hole yesterday were not golfers and didn't know that. And of course, I've heard one player go past me and he's done the extension of the left arm. He's gone past me and you should have heard what he was saying to the spotter, but not directly. Definitely not directly, under his breath, but you could tell he was incredibly frustrated.
Yeah, right.
And of course, I went down and helped him search. We found his ball, all okay. But you could just tell he was frustrated. But then, I spoke to the PGA people about this, and they put it into perspective. And they said, they are there to help, they're volunteers, but the players shouldn't be, they're there to help. The players still need to play their own game, play golf, and not rely too heavily on the spotters.
Yeah, but that's a bit tough, because if someone's telling you something or you're expecting them to be there and doing something, they can actually get in the way.
Definitely. You don't want them adversely affecting.
Which happens, and which is even worse. So I can see, okay, some of the players just take their concern or take their anger out on someone else when it's not actually warranted, and they're actually just doing it. It could be a tree, they're just doing it because they're trying to let go of some anger. But other times, like the James Grierson, he's actually been he's the other way. He's been not only not helped, but actually they've told him to do something that
indirectly,
he shouldn't have done.
And for those who don't know, I don't think I mentioned his name. So that's because I told you the story. That's the guy who picked up his provisional ball when he shouldn't have on the second hole.
That's right. No one's going to be listening to this podcast that knows it.
That's true.
But yeah, I mean, that's rough. You just need, like sometimes I'd say that it's better just not have the spotter there at all.
I think for safety, it's important. In that particular case, they were standing in the middle. She did play a valuable role in standing in the middle of the fairway until the players on the fairway had hit their second shots and then walked off, and people on the 10th team knew then it was safe to play. Yeah, that was a very important role.
That is an important role, but one of the caddies could have done that. If there wasn't someone there, one of the caddies could have said it, if they were smart enough, stood up the top of the hill and waited for them to play. So, you'll find a way to make it work.
Yeah.
It's when the volunteer hasn't been given too much training, and then they become a liability almost. What else?
The only other one I sent you the photo of this was the cart path right of 5th green, and right next to the cart path was a chain fence going through posts.
Oh,
So
yes,
I gave quite a few people.
I wanted to hear about this one.
You want to hear about it?
Yeah. I was like, oh, what you said? Oh, I've got heaps of information about this one.
Well, oh, geez, I've oversold this. All I was saying was quite a few people were on that path. Quite a few people then interfered with by the chain fence, and I just took the players through 2 relief procedures. So because they were 2 separate abnormal course conditions. Not that they want to hear that expression, but I just said, because they said, oh, look, if I go that way off the path, I'm going to have. I said, that's fine. Let's just drop. Let's get relief from the path. If you then have relief from the chain fence and what have you, we'll then go through the procedure all again. I think the point, and it happened to quite a few players, I think the point I wanted to make was, and the player was well known in Australian golf, you'd know him, was he was on the path and he said, so what's happening here? I said, well, here's your nearest point here. You've got to get the stance off the path. That'll be your nearest point, club length. If you have interference, blah, 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 blah. He's going, oh, okay. Thinking he's not going to be able to get over the trees, back onto his hole. And I said, but of course you can play it as it lies as well. And he's gone, oh, yes, of course. And then he actually ended up playing the ball off the path. It was a much better angle to actually get it back through to the fairway that he was playing. And I think every now and again, when players see their ball on the path, they not forget, but it's not first and foremost in their mind that they actually still have the option to play the ball as it lies. When I said that to him, he was almost half surprised. Like, oh, yeah, of course. And then he ended up playing that and actually taking that option.
That's because their first initial thought is, yeah, I'm going to get a free drop. I'm going to get the ball in my hand. I'm going to get a free drop. Where's my best place?
Yeah.
Where's my best
play
place?
Off the grass, not the gravel. Yeah.
Oh, it's not even that.
It's not
even what they're playing off. It's I'm getting the ball in my hand and I get to basically almost place it where I want to place it.
Right, where I want to put it. Yeah.
That's what they're thinking.
That control.
That's what they're thinking. So, and then when you say, well, you'd be dropping in the bush, they go, oh, that's not fair. You're like, well, you can play as it lies. Oh, well, I'll have to.
So this was probably the most, and I'll be perfectly open here, the most attitude I've ever had towards a player. I won't say I'm proud of it, but I am human. And on right 10 meters away from this very incident, the situation we're talking about is the right-hand side bunker on 5. And right in the middle of that bunker was a plastic drainage cap on top of the drain. And the player was right in there, sitting on top of the plastic or metal. I didn't go in to touch it, but it was plastic or metal. And his ball was sitting on that. And he's called me over and he says, I can get free relief. I said, oh, but I have to drop it, right? I said, yep, you have to drop it within the bunker. And he's going, and he's really upset. Oh, it's going to be on a downslope and blah, blah, blah. And I said, well, you can always play as it lies. That's what I said to him. Because he was really upset and almost annoyed. Why would they put that? I think he said something. Why would they put it there? I've got to take relief now on this downslope, blah, blah, blah. And so I thought, you're giving me a bit of attitude here. Maybe not directly at me, but I could feel it because I represented the rules of golf in a way and the course and the committee. And I just said back to him with the tiniest bit of attitude, I just said, well, you can play it as it lies, right? Anyway, that was all. I've just been perfectly. That was probably the most attitude I've ever had towards a player, and it wasn't really that much, but I did have a bit of bite in my voice.
I think if you're calling that attitude, I think you're overthinking it, Stuart. That doesn't sound like
maybe I was. No, but I had a bit of attitude when I said it. In other words, stop complaining because you've still got the option of playing as it lies. Right? You don't have to drop it there at all.
No, that's right. Was that the last one?
Oh, yeah, that's probably it. That's enough from me.
I think I'm just going to cover one because I think I got on TV for a couple that I'm going to get you to check. But Patrick Reed on the 3rd round, he hit his drive and a bit of lead tape that he has on the back of the driver came off. It didn't fully come off. It half came off, unstuck. And he called me in and said, can he replace it? And I said, yes, that's permitted to be replaced. And then he asked me if it fully came off, could he replace it? And it got lost. Could he replace it with new lead tape? And I just wasn't certain. So it wasn't a do or die, we need the answer right now situation. So I said, I'll come back to you. I'll just do some research. I'll come back to you. He played the hole out. The next hole's a par 3, so I knew I had a little bit of time. I did find the ruling before he started the par 3, but I knew that I did have a little bit of time. And firstly, I got on the radio and said, hey guys, I've just got a situation about a club. I'll put it in our message system. So like WhatsApp or Messenger or whatever, we have a message system for the team. I'll put it in the message system so you can read it and give me an answer. But at the same time, I went into my book and I had a look. And lo and behold, there's a clarification right there about lead tape that states that you can use, if the piece of lead tape comes off, you can use new lead tape to put it on, and that's fine. Okay. Now, you know, a lot of things can cross your mind. Oh, what if you put in too much lead tape or not enough, or change the club? If you think about the pros, and I know who it was, Patrick Reed, you're thinking, oh, he's trying an angle here, but really they don't want a different club from what they've been hitting on the range or what they've been hitting all week. He'd be trying to make sure it was exactly the same. Now, I know that name suddenly sparks up, or he's trying to cheat, but there was nothing like that. He was just simply asking a question, and it was all fine to just put the tape back down, or if it did come off or he couldn't get it stuck back on, he could certainly put a new piece of tape on. So that was basically the only one I wanted to talk about. Oh, the other one actually I posted on YouTube was about a guy. I denied him free relief from this big rock because the big rock is a loose impediment. So a couple of the caddies got together, moved the rock down the hill, and then he was fine to play it as it lies. Yeah, it was funny. I went into that situation. He's not such a nice guy, the player, and he said, you know, what do I get free relief? No, you don't, but it is a loose impediment. Another player said, oh, we can just move it then, can't we? And, you know, it didn't spark my, you know, sort of advice giving as what you've thought about with your situation. But now it sort of does. But, you know, I would have said the same thing. I said, well, it's a loose impediment, you can move it. So it's not really advice influencing how to treat the rules or play by the rules. It was the rule, it's a loose impediment, you're allowed to move it. So I'm happy with that. But then they moved it and managed to get that on my own phone. Not that I would encourage that, but I was able to get the footage of them moving the rock on my own phone. We will get into finish off this episode with GRQ OTW 78. Go for it, Stuart.
Episode 78, here we go. Stuart and Ross are playing a match at Wombat Hills in the first round of the Wombat Hills Cup. On the first tee, Ross asks Stuart what personal identification mark he has on his ball, and Stuart refuses to answer, saying only, I'm playing a Strixon. This infuriates Ross, who asks again, insisting Stuart is required to answer. When Stuart does not reply, Ross requests a ruling from a nearby referee. What is that ruling?
They're all disqualified. Right.
You're giving the answer away.
Oh, sorry. Have a crack at the question, and we will see you for episode 79 of the GRQ OTW. Actually, just before we leave, what do you got on this week, Stuart? Are you going to the Vic Open?
I am not going to the Vic Open. No.
That's one of the best referees in Victoria, and you're not even going to the Vic Open. That's a shame.
That's very nice. Very kind. Thank you.
Have you got any? When's your next event?
Hopefully some more PGA stuff coming up. soon in the next month or so.
All right, excellent. I've got Oman this week, Qatar next week, and then I'll be home.
Fantastic. Safe travels.
Thank you very much. Yeah, listen out for 79 in the coming weeks. Thank you, everyone.